I know that we have all much to think about. At this time, we'll pivot to the second segment of today's Community of Practice, where I will first introduce Christine and invite her to share her slides when able. Christine Brodeur is an intelligence analyst for the National Research Council of Canada. Her job involves using bibliometrics for research evaluation, as well as scientometric studies aimed at presenting the state of research in different topics. Her previous job as a science and engineering librarian allowed her to explore how different bibliometric indicators are used in an academic setting. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, thanks Monique, and thanks Simon for the first presentation as well. So my presentation is a bit different. I didn't do the same type of research, and I have used journal level indicators for a long time as a science librarian in a university, now for the last 2 years almost at the NRC. So I'll present them and we'll go after to look at how they're used, what they should be used for, and or not be used for, and the limits, and so on. First of all, so today I'm going to talk about journal impact indicators. So there are also some journal quality indicators, so it's not the same thing. And sometimes it's tough that you're like, oh yeah, one is the same, oh, it has a high impact, then it's a good journal. We'll come back to that in the misuse later on as well. But there are a few resources here. I'm sure some of you can maybe put them in the chat. The Think, Check, Submit one, I think, is the most common one. I won't like transfer to open it and show and copy and everything. But if if anyone wants to paste the address in the chat for everyone to discover them. If you don't know about, especially that first one is pretty good. It includes a like 2-minute video, and it's really good for the quality part. So yeah, thank you, Monique, for that. And there's a couple more there. If you have others, please share them as well. So when we talk about impact, it's usually used to measure the average citation impact. So on average, how many citation does each article in a journal received? And also I liked here, and this will be linked also later on, it will be linked with what Simon said of published citation, because now we have all different types of research. It's not always published in journal that are included in the different databases. So that's why I took this one also as a quote here from Columbia University there. Yeah. I will have you work a little bit as well, so hopefully it will work. There is more than 100 people here. From what I read, I have the free Menti app, but it should go on for everyone. I'm sorry if you get blocked and you can't get in, but it should work. So please go to menti.com, enter the code 33258279, and hopefully, oops, I will move on to the next slide. So you should be seeing that in Menti. So Menti is the information also here. So menti.com. Thank you again, Monique. 33258279. And you should be able to vote more than one. Like, so what have you, which indicator have you just heard about? Like, you heard the name, click on that. And if you click others, so I see that there's 4 people now that are clicking on others, I'd be happy for you to share them in the chat as well. So I couldn't put everything in there. At some point, I'd figured like 8 choices was kind of enough. Those are usually the ones that come up more often. I'll give it a couple more seconds. So I'm not really surprised that journal impact factor from Clarivate is the most well-known one that you've heard the name. CiteScore, obviously. I'm surprised there's a lot of people who are choosing the journal citation indicator. That is actually quite recent. SciMago is well known as well. So anyone who chose others, if you want to share them in the chat, or if it's just, oh yeah, I've heard others, but you're not too sure what it is, you can still think about it, because my next slide, let's move back here. My next slide, and stay in Menti, please. We'll have a couple. So if you come out, I'm not sure if you'll be allowed to come back. So hopefully you will. And the next one, you can, like, sometimes you will be able to put it in the chat as well. So next question, which one do you really know? So let's move on here. So definitely JIF is the most well-known one. Like, which one then can you really explain how they work, what they mean, how they're calculated. Like someone is coming up to you, hey, I have no clue what the site score is. Please give me more information about site score. So the first one was really, I've heard the name. And second one is, oh yeah, I know what it is. All right, so I think I'll leave a couple more seconds again. So same place, menti.com, same code. Oh yeah, it's true. I've kind of put aside all the H index variation, but it's true that they're applied to publication as well. Thank you, Elizabeth, as well. So you are, yes, they're well known, obviously, but it's true that they can be used as well. Okay, and here, so how they're calculated, super interesting. So as you can see, most of you have less information on how they're actually calculated, which is kind of expected as well. So no surprise here. I'm kind of happy that there's zero people, sorry, that for the global impact factor, because I will come back to it a bit later on. Oh, yeah, research metric webpage. All right. But it's that the H index, like in my head, it's more for researchers or for institution, but it's true that it can be applied to kind of different entity, and then like the journal becomes the entity. The FWCI, at the journal level, yeah, I guess you can take all the article from a journal and apply the FWCI, which is the equivalent. That's like the name from Elsevier from Scopus, Scival, they kind of go together. From Web of Science, I think it's CNCI, is kind of the equivalent, but it's true that it could be applied at the level of journal. You are correct as well. Okay, so we will look at a few of them, how they're calculated. I will not go so much in the details, and I see some people here. So Clarivate, I think I saw Marissa on the call. So if I say something that should be improved or corrected, please let me know. And when we'll come back, when we'll go to the site score one from Elsevier, there's anyone from Elsevier on the call that works with that aspect, again, let me know. So the idea is to give you a general view and mostly the reference. So you'll get the slide, as Monique said at the beginning. So you'll have the link here that explains a bit more in details. I'm going to explain 4 of those today, and the other I will just put the link. And they work, they have little differences, but basically like they come back to each other, and some are almost similar. So the JIF, so journal impact factor, it was the most well-known. About 40 of you, so a bit less than half, said, yes, I can explain it. I can describe how it's calculated. So hopefully that's what you had in your head. So basically it's the citation received in a single year to article or to material from the 2 previous year, divided by the number of articles in review, so they call citable items, in those 2 years. So citation in a year to the 2 previous year, divided by the number of publication in those 2 years. I will not go again in the limits, the misuse, the use, and like what they're really, I'm going to say just technical for the first part, and then we'll get kind of just globally what are the limits, or what shouldn't they be used for, and so on. So the JIF is available to subscription to the JCR, so Journal Citation Report. The JCR presents other journal metrics, and I've switched. So I was using that in my previous job. Now I'm using CiteScore. So I haven't been in the last year and a half. So hopefully it looks similar. But basically each journal has like a full page on the JCR with other types of metric, 5-year JIF, citation distribution. There's information on open access now, I think, as well. It was initially developed, and that's interesting to know, so by Eugene Garfield in the early 1960s. I couldn't pinpoint the exact year, and it was to support collection development. So in that time, there was no like these big online database, obviously, so it was all on paper, and like librarians would want to know, okay, which journal should I subscribe to? And they could take a look at that to see, oh, those are the ones that are most cited, so I guess my researchers will want to read those more. Did it work? I am not sure. The 2023 release, so the 2023 release that was released probably in June, was for the 2022 GIF. So it's always like 6 months later. So the information is all in the database. And according to that guide, it covers 21,522 journals from 112 countries. And it's now provided to 1 decimal place. It used to be to 3 decimal place. Clear any information on the technical aspect of GIF, Journal Impact Factor? So citation in 1 year to the previous 2 divided by number in those years, number of articles in those years. Then, oops, it doesn't want to move. Okay, so Clarivate, I think it was 2 years ago. So yeah, it was first included in the 2021 JCR. They developed the Journal Citation Indicator. And here it's slightly different. So first, the citation are retrieved from 3 years. So citation received in 19, 20, 20, 21, even 4 years, 19, 20, 21, 22, to the previous 3 years material, divided by citable items from those 3 years. So again, it's a division, but the citation are retrieved over a longer period. And it's also an, again, I couldn't find some details, so maybe Marissa, if you want to jump in, or if it's just enough to know that it says that it used the CNCI, so the Category Normalized Citation Impact. So I guess this is what it's plugged in here instead of the absolute number of citation. It wasn't, I couldn't find it from their reference guide here, but they made it clear that they're normalized. So it should be possible to compare from one discipline to another. And it has a baseline of 1. So if you have, like the CNCI, if it's more than 1, cited more than average, less than 1, cited less than average. So again, it's like 1 extra from Clarivate to complement, I guess, the GIF to show a different aspect of what's going on. So it's normalized by field. So Marissa confirms here that that's the JCI. Thank you. Then we have the site score. And we, at this point, we'll see that they kind of not overlap each other, but they take kind of the same ideas, because here it's also citation received over 4 years, just like the previous one, JCI, yes. So the site score, citation received over 4 years, divided by all the materials published in those 4 years. So there's a slight difference. The other one, like the citation had an extra year, basically. And then it's the number of documents published in the journals during those 4 years as well. It was developed by Elsevier in 2016. They had a major, more or less major, like methodology change in 2020, and it seemed to be pretty stable since then. It's also available through subscription via Scopus, and they say that not they say, but I saw that journals have a site score, and there are also some conferences that do have a site score. I guess it's conferences that like come back every year, but some conferences also don't have a site score. It includes different types of documents, article reviews, conference papers, book chapters, and so on. Site score is available freely as well. Oh yeah, so okay, thank you. I did not know that. So Bridget, if you could either expand, turn on your mic, or writing at where they would find, where people could find that would be super interesting, because like where I work, we're subscribed to Scopus. So I figured, hey, that's where we get it. And Marissa put the link to the JCR as well. I'm losing the chat. All right, so hopefully we'll get the information on how it can be accessed freely. And the last one that I'll go more in the actual detail. So it's a little less well known, I guess. It's the SNP, Source Normalized Impact per Paper by CWTS. They're the group from Leiden University. So the first 3 that I explained were Elsevier and Clarivate, so from companies. So these ones are really from a research group. They published 2 papers on how they came up with that indicator. So the link will be there for the scientific paper. And it's actually similar to the GIF, so the first one we saw. So number of citation given in the present year to publication in the past 3 years. If we remember, the GIF was only 2 years at first. So here the window, or the number of years that they look at is a bit bigger. and it divided by the total number of publication in the past 3 years. So that stays similar in everything. And here the citations are also normalized, and it's the only information that I could find in their methodology. They didn't give any more details on that, but the citation would be normalized by field also. I kind of liked for them the search interface. Like you could search for a paper, you could order them, you can limit by a different thing. So Bridget, thank you. Scopus and sources, it works without a subscription. Okay, well, you've got the link there. So if you want the site score and you don't have access to Scopus, you can still get the data. So that's useful. Thank you. So yeah, SNP, they also show the impact per publication, percent of self-citation, and the impact per publication is very similar to the impact factor. So basically in their SNP, they normalize, and in their IPP, impact per publication, they don't normalize. So that's basically the difference between those two. And it was also updated in June 2023, so they update it pretty much yearly. So those are the 4 that I will go into details. I did want to put the link, so you'll have the one to the SCImago and the eigenfactor. So the SCImago is also updated yearly, or it seems to be. The eigenfactor, it's present in the JCR interface actually, but on their free website, the last year available I could see was 2015. So like the free version doesn't seem to be available anymore. And their calculation is a bit more complicated because they take into account where the citation comes from. Like it's really more of a network than the other that are really a mean, basically, like they average how much citation they received divided by number of articles published. Then the fake indicators. So you have to be careful. Yes, thank you. Monique put the 2 links in the chat as well. So in the fake indicators, there are some going around. It seems to be a bit not less of a problem, but I feel that when I started about 10 years ago now working in a university, that this topic came up a bit more often. Now I had to actually kind of look for it really to find them. But basically they're indicators that when you look at their website, there's no clear data source, like it's a generic email to contact them. There's not really any methodology. Some are created to support fake journals. Some are just fully fake, some create, and that's what I was saying from before. The global impact factor is one of those. So that's why I was happy that no one said, oh yeah, I know how it's calculated. Like I went to their website and I couldn't even really know how it's calculated. So that's not something that we want to use, basically. So if you see an indicator somewhere, make sure that it's real or that like there's a good background to it. And we're going to talk about limitation and other things as well, but that would be, I guess, the first big thing to look at. And I found this article a bit old, yeah, now 8 years, but the story of fake impact factor companies and how we detected them. So I thought that could be interesting if you want some background reading on this aspect. Any comments on the technicalities of those indicators? So I know that was kind of quick, but the idea was mostly for you to get the links, and then you can go back and try to, if you want to kind of really understand the math behind it, you can go back to it. Yes, you will have, so the link either, I think Monique, you have my presentation, so you can like open it, copy, and so on, or you'll have the slides afterwards as well. Thank you. There it is. So there's the link to that. I think it's the link from PubMed, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure it was open access. Hopefully, I'm sorry if it's not. I think it was. Okay. Next, so we're getting more in the discussion phase, and your turn again. So I thought we would start with the here it is. So with the use, so why would you use a journal impact indicator? So we're focusing on the impact indicators, and that it would be kind of correct. So what is a good way that it can be useful, that it should be used? So you have 200 characters. It's really not long. So put a few words, or if you want to turn on your microphone. I have a couple listed as well, but you've worked with researchers as well. You've seen them used. So I thought I'd hear from you as well, because I probably don't have all the answers. Like I didn't we've learned a few things from the chat as well. So on decide where to publish, I'll expand a little bit. So I'll leave, I think I won't put that as a shared screen for now. So you don't see other people's answer. I'll wait a bit and then I'll bring it back in. And as you type, I will read and see if I can group a few things together. So it's anonymous. Don't worry if you make spelling mistakes. All right. Okay, I'll bring it back. You can still submit your answer, or you can expand in the chat, or you can turn on your microphone. We're at 30. I won't have time to read everything though. Now people are finishing, so it's coming in. I'm kind of not surprised, but collection development. So that was the initial idea. If someone wants to expand on that, I've seen it a few other times, I think. Yeah, where to publish, we'll come back on that as well. It seems to be like identical, like maybe someone submitted a few times, but I saw collection development a few times. I feel maybe it's just me. I feel there's so much tools now to look more closely at what your own organization, where it's publishing, even which references they're using, that to look at like the big indicators that are like super global, I'm not sure that it's super representative. Maybe some of it, maybe it can give some information, but I think you would have to be a bit careful for the collection development aspect. Maybe it's kind of second check that, okay, I don't see that in my own research, but globally in this field, which my organization has a big faculty or whatever, there's, okay, I don't have it, why it's there, and then maybe you can like go back to the researchers and ask, hey, this journal has a like, I don't know, huge site score and no one's mentioning it, like why is there a reason? So maybe, or if someone wants to complement this as well, I'd be happy to hear from you. So it's part of the idea today to have this community of practice thing to exchange as well. So the collection development, I'm not saying no, I'm not saying like 100% yes either. I don't think by itself it would be that useful. Oh yeah, that's where I saw it as well. So yeah, selecting a journal to publish in, I'll go back to my own answers if I can find them. Yeah, so I wrote participate in the decision in which journal to publish in, because you have to be careful. We'll see them with the limit. Maybe I should have put the limit at first, but anyway, you have to be careful because there are some limit that you should not just look at that it's not, it can participate, as I said. Oh yeah, Marissa, you're moving on to my next topic of what it shouldn't be used for. We'll get there, and I'll come back to that. So trustiness of the journal, part of it, yes. So I used to give a workshop to a graduate student, and I would tell them like, if they have site score, GIF, any of the well-known indicators, it's a good sign, yes. But if they don't have it, it's not necessarily a bad sign. Like you have to be careful. It's not you have one, you're good. You don't have one, you're a bad journal. No, okay, that's really not it. So again, it would participate in the trustiness of a journal, I would say. So it's one thing among other. Yeah, no, it's true. I saw it somewhere. I lost it and I hadn't put it up, but it's true that like to find journals that you're not aware of. It's true that like you go to these, well, like this journal has been cited, like it has one of the most, the highest GIF in my field. So be careful, choose the correct not classification, but categories. And it's like, hey, I didn't even know it exists. So it's true that like to discover new journal, that would be something that it could be useful. Yeah, so Scopus has been tricked by predatory journals. Yes, that's probably you wrote Scopus, maybe other database as well. It's true that sometimes it would have this indicator, but it's not necessarily. Maybe I spoke in too absolute a term. So you should need to check the other quality indicators that I didn't go into at the beginning. Help with the picture of a journal. Yeah, that's I like that one here, that it like participate in what's this journal, how should I judge it? Oh, that's super interesting. So very specific example, and okay, I hadn't heard it before, but if you say so. So foreign student use this as a way to demonstrate their impact to immigration when applying to a work visa. So okay. uh Yes and no. Maximize the chance of receiving many citations. No, not necessarily, because again, they're all average. So an average, depending on, and then we're kind of moving on in the misuse and the limitation, which I'll let you talk about as well. I'll let you write about it. But since it's an average, like the highest, I think at GIF and in CiteScore as well, it's the Cancer Clinician Journal or something. It's a journal in cancer. It has a huge impact indicators, but like it publishes 40 articles a year. My numbers may be a bit off, but like the number of articles published is super low. So if you only have 50 articles and you have one with like 500 citation, it's going to pull everything up. Like you could have one with 100, everything else with 0, and it would still be quite high. So you have to be careful with, because it's an average, it can hide certain things as well. Yeah, so I don't have Bridget, sorry. It's that some have never been cited, even in Nature and Science. So thank you for the statistic there. So moving along, let's go. And I think it kind of, oh yeah, I had the idea that it could be useful for the publishers as well, like to benchmark, to monitor what's going on with their journal, because for them, of course, they want people to use it, to cite it, and so on. So I think that could be something that would be useful. And just in general research purposes, like are multidisciplinary journal being cited as much as discipline journals or whatever? So I'm sure there would be something going on there. Okay, the other aspect, which Marissa gave part of the answer in the chat as well. I will open the Menti as well. Explain one way a journal impact indicator can be misused, or that it shouldn't be used, or put in the limitation in there if you want as well. So I didn't put a different Menti for the limitation. They kind of go together. So what shouldn't they be used for? Or what are the limitations of journal impact indicators? And again, I will move it out of the way so you don't get too much idea. And you can submit more than one, like if you want to write, as people seem to be typing just a few words, and you can submit more than once if you want. We're getting there slowly. Answers are coming in. So I see a lot, and if that's what you're typing and you still want to submit it, go for it. But I see many similar that Marissa said, that to evaluate individuals, proxy of quality of a single paper, that it measures directly research impact. So I think this is well known, and if you didn't, it's okay as well. And hopefully you learned it today, and you'll remind that. So it says the quality of individual article or author, it should not be used to do that. Okay, so that's really kind of the main misuse, I think. So if you have something else, so answers are coming in. Again, I can't read much of everything. Oh, I like here determine grant funding. It's true that some people are trying to put that forward that, oh yeah, I publish all those papers in those high impact journals, you should give me money. I think the grant organization, at least in Canada, they're trying to move away from these types of indicators as well, but I'm not 100% in what I'm saying here. Okay, so I see a discussion there of on what's cited or not. Okay, so let's come back to this one. Yeah, so measure for person or single article. So, and it's true, so should not be used across discipline for the GIF. And that's where sometimes some indicators are better than the other. So like the GIF, it's definitely its absolute number of citations. So it should not be compared across discipline. And I know if you look mostly like in math, you have a couple that are definitely higher, but then everything has like 2, 3, 4 of impact. Like they're kind of all grouped together. And I haven't seen it. Maybe someone wrote it, and that's part of the limit. But like if you have 1.4 or 1.5 of GIF or site score, like is 0.1 really make a difference? Like you can't have 0.1 citation or 0.01 citation. So you have to be careful also how you compare it. So not between discipline, unless it's normalized, then maybe it's okay. So you have to be careful. Yeah, so journal self-citation, and I saw someone at the top who wrote gaming, so that's one of the limit as well. So yes, there has been some gaming of citation, or saying, oh yeah, you want to publish with us? Well, you need to cite the journal at least 10 times or whatever. So you have to be careful with that. I know Clarivate actively will look for those, and some journals will be excluded from the next JCR if they're found to do that. I don't know if SiteScore does it, I have to say. I guess hopefully they are in a way, so they can find some. They probably don't find everything. There are fake indicators, so you have to be careful. I will come back to what most of it is there. I got a couple more for those. Yeah, citation cartels there. That's someone is like, oh, you cite me, I'll cite you, and so on, either between the journals or maybe even at the researchers level, I guess. But yeah, like you have to be careful with that. Okay, so I've put it very bold and bigger here. So measuring the quality of individual articles, it should not be used, or even of an individual, just by him or herself. It's not the quality. Like it can participate, as we discussed, like it could be a good sign, though there are some that went through the cracks, as it was mentioned. Compare using very precise values, like it doesn't make sense. Decide where to submit strictly on the indicators. You should not do that as well, because, and as Simon said, like the Canadian journals, there was what, 25% that were in Web of Science, I think. So some of those journals, I'm sure, are really, really good, even if they don't have a journal impact factor. So you have to be careful with that as well. So where you publish, it has to be what you want to, like the mission and the scope has to be good for you. Oh yeah, so DORA, I couldn't do my presentation without mentioning DORA today. If you don't know about it, you can take a look here. I'm getting there, so 5 minutes before the question as well. But do not use journal-based metrics such as journal impact factor as a surrogate for the quality of individual research articles. So that's part of DORA. There are other things in DORA as well, but it's the one that applied to what we're talking about today. Then, yeah, so the limitation, the types of documents, this is more true, I guess, for the GIF and the other one from Clarivate, JCI, because the, numerator up top, denominator at the bottom, it's citable items. So like in this number, they only take articles and reviews, but they will take any, like the citation coming from anything. So they say there's kind of a discrepancy with both. The number of years, is 2 year enough? They also provide the 5 years one, so maybe that's more appropriate for some. For some, it's even longer than that. So there was a study at the BRIC conference a while ago in math that is like 40, like math article are kept cited like for a really long time. So the number of years might not be always appropriate. It could be difficult. We've talked about that. Discipline, open to manipulation. We've talked about it as well, the cartel and the gaming and so on. The size of the journal, well, I kind of talked to it at the beginning. So if you have a very small journals and it goes with the asymmetric distribution of citation, 1 or 2 articles that are cited a lot will bring up the average, but it's not really representative. I like that the GIF now showing the citation distribution. That helps to get okay, this journal, very high impact factor, and it's like, oh, like all articles are getting cited relatively equivalently, or like it's rarely normal distribution, but that could be kind of a good sign. Some have somewhat of a black box calculation, like you can't redo them, you can't get the same number. And well, again, it depends on the indicators, but some are available through subscription only. So that would be a limit. Then in conclusion, so if you're using an indicators, if a client comes to you to say, hey, I want to use that, or hey, this journal has this indicator, is that good or bad? Know it. So take the time to go to the website, refresh your own memory if you're not too sure of how it's calculated, what does it really mean? Be aware of the limits. We've talked about them. Some presented directly on the indicators website as well, and share those limits with the users. Maybe sometimes try to suggest another indicators or complement with something else as well to show like what's out there, that it's not just a single number that should reflect, oh, that's a good journal because it has a journal impact factor of 32. No, okay, that's definitely not something that you can say right that. There's other thing to qualify and give information on that journal. And to finish, you will have also, so you'll have the slide there, but University of Toronto, I found those for, again, if you know of any others, please share them in the chat as well. So University of Toronto on Journal Impact, University of Alberta as well. Il y en a une en français, donc mesurer l'influence d'une revue de l'Université Laval. I'm sure there are others in Quebec as well. It's the first one I thought, and Philippe who's in the committee as well. That's partly why I started there. But again, please free. So Elizabeth has one. Thank you. And you can take a note, and maybe can we keep the chat, Monique, at the end, or can you copy the one from Brock and I'll maybe add it in the presentation that we'll share, or maybe we can try to do that. Okay, and another BRIC presentation from 4 years ago now that showed that there is actually a pretty good correlation between the different indicators. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't remember exactly which one they compared, but it was from the Université du Québec, and they wanted to not subscribe to JCR anymore, and they're like, we're going to offer this instead, and they like to show their clients, their patrons, that yes, you won't have access to JCR, but this other indicators, like it correlates, it's going to show the same thing. Well, not exactly, but it's going to be like close enough to say we can use that. And that's it. So I think we're good for time as well, getting close to there, but you had some chance to express yourself in the Menti.
In respected time, I'll just connect folks with our remaining slide and reminders and announcements. But thank you so kindly for your incredibly interesting presentation. I think you're welcome to continue this conversation in the chat while I briefly connect others to some information on the BRI Book Club. So we do hope that you'll consider joining us for the next session of the BRI Book Club, taking place online Thursday, September 28th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. The group will discuss chapters 3 and 4 of Laura Bradell's The Current and Evolving Landscape of Bibliometric Tools and Technologies. The following book club sessions will take place on August 24th and November 22nd. And to select continuing topics, there is a survey that has been generated by my colleague Philippe, who manages the BRI Book Club. If you would like to receive a calendar invitation for this reoccurring event, please do contact Philippe, the book club moderator, or you can also contact Rachel. Their emails are listed on this slide and in the chat for those who are interested. And before ending today's session, just a few announcements. BRI's next Community of Practice event will take place on Wednesday, November 15th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. The speaker is Dr. Stephen McGregor from the University of Calgary, and he'll be discussing the role of social network analysis and knowledge mobilization work. The BRI facilitators would like your feedback. Please complete a survey, a link of which is in the chat. We would love to hear from you and gauge your interest in participating or potentially contributing to upcoming BRI community practices. Really, I can't stress enough, your feedback, your suggestions, and your participation are all so much appreciated. Lastly, the BRI listserv is intended to facilitate communication for this community, to share information, to ask questions. So those of you who may not be members of this listserv, please subscribe, and you can contact Elizabeth Flesh to be added to it. And lastly, a reminder that a recording of this session and the presenter's slides will follow the event and be sent to your emails. If you missed the last community of practice, again, you might consider viewing the last call at the link in the chat. And with that, I will thank you all so much for your participation, and a special thank you to our presenters and the wealth of knowledge that they shared with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monique. And on behalf of Carl, I'd like to thank Simon and Christine for these rich and engaging presentations. Thank all of you for joining us today, and extend also a thank you to the steering